Welcome to the Athens-Clarke County Commission budget review session, work session. We've got some constitutional elected officers meeting with us this evening. Each officer is going to get 20 minutes for the presentation, which includes the Q&A to follow thereafter. So presenters, please leave some time for some questions from my colleagues. We'll have District Attorney Deborah Gonzalez, followed by Judge Amanda Trimble and Elisa Zarate. Then State Court Chief Judge Ethelyn Simpson, and then closing out with Chief Circuit Public Defender John Donnelly. Following that, we'll have discussion and questions with my colleagues sort of behind the rail in the internet. So let's go ahead and get it started. District Attorney Deborah Gonzalez, take it away. Welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. I truly appreciate this opportunity to once again talk a little bit about the reform request that my office is making. I did email a final handout to everyone earlier in the day because we discovered an error in the final draft of the mayor's budget, in that it does say that one of the initiatives include $66,000 for an additional full-time ADA position, and that was incorrect. The $66,000 is for Director of External Affairs position. It is not an ADA position. I think that caused a little bit of confusion. When I had spoken with HR, we have the ADA position. It had been reallocated temporarily for this last part of the 21 budget to be that director position. But in order to keep it and make it permanent, I had to ask for that position, not another ADA position. So I wanted to make it very clear that I am not asking for a lawyer's position in ADA. I am asking for a director of external relations. And basically, that is a role that's being played right now temporarily, but it has already been bringing us benefits. We have submitted grants to the tune of over $400,000. We're excited about where this may go and what other opportunities there will be, but it would not happen without that individual doing the extraordinary work that he has been doing. So I just wanted to make sure that was corrected. So some kind of translation between the original budget documents and then what was finalized in the mayor's budget. So I did want to put that there. The second thing I want to highlight, I know we've talked a lot about my reform request, but one thing that we had not had a chance to talk about was this other expense listed on the budget at $28,300. This was something put in about 2010, 2011. It was a penalty to my predecessor, and I am asking for it to be taken off of my budget since this administration had nothing to do with it. And I really don't feel I should have that penalty carried over into this new administration. So, when I talk to finance and they tell me that it's just a number there, you guys are the ones who can take it off. I just want to make sure that that's, not a new initiative. That is something now 11 years old that's been carried over every year on this budget that really shouldn't be there anymore. The last thing that I want to say before I really want to get to answer your questions is that you understand that I've been very diligent in making sure that my reform requests actually do align with the mayor and commissioner's goals and objectives and what they're trying to do in creating a safe and thriving community. And that when we look at our office and the funding that I am asking for, I do ask that you consider that the Office of the Public Defender has a separate request, and that you should assess our two office requests independently of each other. I think it sets up a very false narrative to think or say that in funding one, you cannot fund the other. I think there are places in this budget where we can find funds to fund both of the offices that are both doing extremely important work for our community. And so those were the 3 points on my handout that I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to touch on. And now I will just be open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, District Attorney Gonzalez. Questions for the District Attorney on her request?
Just a very quick clarification, DA Gonzalez. The 28,000 reduction that has just been, you're right, this sort of legacy narrative line. You're simply asking for removal of that narrative within the context of the budget document.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something, again, that the finance department is sort of saying, we don't know what to do with it until the mayor and commissioner says what to do with it. And it really doesn't affect one way or another. It just keeps being carried year after year. And so since it's not really a constructive piece to the budget, I'm just asking that it be taken away.
Great. Thanks for that clarity. Go ahead, Commissioner Denson, then Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you, DA Gonzalez, for being here with us. I guess clarification, because I am a little bit confused on the first thing, on the DA request. Yeah. So if the mayor's recommended budget was to go forward, that external communications department's position is going to be vacated?
No, if the request goes through, then I have the director for external relations, right? I have that position. I can take back the ADA position that I had been filling temporarily with that position because we were in the middle of budget. And so my plans are to then take that ADA position that I get back because you approved the other position to start with a sentencing and conviction review unit with that particular person.
And DA Gonzalez, if I might, so when the DA took office, she had some restructuring plans. She had some certain functions that she wanted, and she asked to create this position. And of course, we told her, that only the mayor and commission can authorize new positions. So the fallback was she had a vacant ADA slot that you can reallocate a position that's already created by the mayor and commission for another purpose. And so she did that and has hired somebody in. And it's basically what she's asking now. She'd like to have that as its own position, an additional position, and then the original ADA position that was reallocated to create that one be given back to her for that purpose. Is that fair, DA? I just said it a different way.
That's it. And it was always considered that reallocation would be temporary because we were in the middle of this budget process.
Okay. I think I understand that, but I guess what it sounds like is that if the end of this budget, whenever the next budget starts in FY22, if we don't honor that request, basically if the mayor's recommended budget goes forward as it is now, and that position is going to be vacated, the external relations position is going to be vacated, and that's going to go back to a DA?
If I don't reallocate it, right? I think I have to go through the process of reallocating it again. I'm not sure how that works.
But basically,
what it will do, if I don't get this position, it means that we cannot create the sentencing and conviction review unit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I'm understanding. It sounds a little complicated, and I see another chat coming through here, but I think I understand it. Okay.
Well, there basically wasn't a reallocation. We again tried to work with the DA to help her realize her vision, and so the existing position that was there as an ADA, the job description was modified to it's still required because there were some salary requirements that DA Gonzalez was trying to meet. So it still was sort of an attorney type position, but with different and additional duties. That stands. I mean, that person's been hired. That person's not going anywhere. I think, in effect, DA Gonzalez, what you're asking for is a reinstitution of an additional ADA that you use to get the director of external relations in, and then you would hire a new person to fill the ADA,
right,
for those purposes. So it's basically, in effect, just an additional ADA, but really one that she used for the director of external relations.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, DA Gonzalez. I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, not at all.
Some linguistic curiosities here, but I think we got it. Commissioner Myers?
I have two comments, and the first is really a follow-up for that because I don't think the answer addressed sort of what was behind that. And I think the question behind that was, hey, you took one of those ADA slots and moved it over to this external person. Why can't you just like continue that way? Why do you need another ADA again? And so that's my follow up to this question that you got previously. And then I would like to have the question that I had. So why can't you just continue with one less ADA and have that external person?
Well, one, we're facing a backlog, right? We haven't had jury trials for over a year. So whereas we usually have about 30 trials a year or so, last year we didn't have any. So we're doubled now, which means all of our expenses for trials are actually more this year than they were before. So for example, because trials have been delayed, I've got witnesses and victims who are now in other states that my office has to pay to bring them back, okay? So the ADAs that I actually have in place right now, they are all have a job to do to help us get through that backlog. The other thing is because this person has had this ADA position, I can now use it for something new, for criminal justice reform, without hurting what I am doing currently and making sure that we're getting the work done that we have to do.
Okay, so and then my follow up to that is Deborah or DA Gonzalez. I know we were both running for office at the same time, and previous to my knowing anything about you, I had read this book, which I pulled up all the time, Charged by Emily Brazelton, The New Movement to Transform American Prosecution and Mass Incarceration. You know, I referred to this in my materials, and that refers you to the 21st Principles for 21st Century Prosecutor. And then I learned about your platform, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's doing the same thing. And in fact, you said, yes, you were. How does what you're asking for help you why do you need it to transform the DA's office the way you're suggesting? Why do you need these positions?
Because they're new approaches to justice, right? There's two things that we have to do. We have to make sure that injustices do not occur from this moment moving forward, but we also have a responsibility and duty to the community to right injustices that have happened in the past. And that is what the Sentencing and Conviction Review Unit will actually do. It will be able to help us look at cases in wrongful convictions or overzealous sentencing and be able to correct those injustices. And just today, I was in a meeting with the Southern Center of Human Rights and Judge Stevens, and that's exactly what we were doing, modifying a sentence for an individual who had been overcharged and served 25 years for $90. Okay, so that's the kind of work that we can do by having this position filled.
How far back are you going to be looking at the charges? So for how many?
Well, one of the things is we don't know yet, right? One of the functions of this individual is to help create this project, along with there is a professor at UGA School of Law who actually set this up for the Fulton County DA. And so we have already spoken to her so that she can be an advisor for us so that we can set up the policies and the protocols of how we approach this, right? Because we have to let defense attorneys know, we have to let defendants know, how is this going to work? If you have a case, how do you bring it to us? And what is going to be the process, right? All that has to be created.
All right, we've got about 8 more minutes. Commissioner Parker, then Commissioner Houle.
You're muted, Mariah.
Well, I never learned. Jeez. Okay. So, I'm really appreciative of this opportunity to learn more about your request, as well as, we spoke a little bit earlier this week, and those clarifications are very helpful. We also spoke some about the need for us to make sure people aren't ending up involved in the system in the first place. That eventually we would like to see a world in which we invest in our communities sufficiently such that folks aren't getting picked up for crimes because they live in healthier communities and have healthier lives. And so I think the concern among some has been in expanding our criminal justice system. Though for needed reforms, we're still focusing on the back end of when people are already in trouble and not enough on prevention. But understanding better the backlog that your office currently faces and the need for us to expand resources currently to address that backlog such that we can make sure people are getting fair justice and the supports they need to be rehabilitated through office, I absolutely 100% support. I just want to know if we can expect like some of these positions to perhaps become redundant in future years because we are prosecuting less people, and if there can be some sort of measures put in place to for us to review that, maybe look at the data, look at what the needs in the community are in a year from now or 2 years from now, and make sure that we are reflecting on the allocation of resources towards public safety broadly, and perhaps in future years, once you have addressed this backlog, then shifting those resources to more preventative activities. So I wondered if you wanted to speak to that idea at all, and participate in something like that.
Absolutely. And I think those are essential questions. And you touch on something about data. You want to know how efficient and effective, right, the money you give to my office is in terms of criminal justice reform and in making our communities safe. Unfortunately, there's never been data from this office. And so one of the first things that I came in to do was, one, I assessed our pretrial diversion program to see where we were with that. Two, we've already set up a partnership with the organization Luminosity to help us create a data dashboard. Three, I've brought in my new chief ADA. We have already laid out the kind of workload reports we want from our ADAs in terms of what cases are they bringing in, what gets dismissed, how they are resolved, things of that nature. So that part of data, I want not just you, Commissioner Parker, and all the commissioners to know, I want the public to know. So that is why in my reform request, there is this very modest $10,000 request to be able to see those kind of projects and create the website and the data dashboard so that people will know that. That's number one. Number two, I think we all have the same goal, that the system that we have right now, number one, doesn't work the best way for our people. And number two, that we want it to change. And I would love that we would prosecute less people, right? I don't control that completely because there's still the ACCPD that goes and arrests people. And when they arrest somebody, our office, if it's a felony, must review it first so that we can determine whether we have sufficient evidence or if there is sufficient, and for me, it's not about probable cause. For me, it's can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that person is guilty? I take the higher burden, right, before we will prosecute that case. But that takes time and effort and individuals on the front end for us to do that. Right now, from what we get, the court is saying it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get through this backlog before we start seeing that we can sort of take a breath, right? And that things are normal, whatever normal is. So first we have to get to that point to where we are. But in the meantime, what I'm hoping to do is on the front end, because you're very right. Sometimes we only focus on what happens after the fact. But on the front end, that I can work with my ADAs, for example, they've taken trauma-informed prosecution training. Some of them are taking a restorative justice training. Okay, all of these things, they're going through steps with the ADA and my day one memo. All of these things to start training them and teaching how do you create the intake screening from the very beginning so that we are not going through the entire process before we figure it out we really shouldn't have been here in the first place. So I hope that helps, because I think it's essential that we set up measurements for what we consider success in criminal justice reform in the DA's office, but also that we have the opportunity to look back every few years and see, are we getting there? Are we reaching those goals? I'm one of the first ones to say audit the office. And I've started with my own audit of our pretrial diversion program, because we need to know where we are so that we can then compare it to where we are in a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. That's important because that proves whether we've been effective, whether we've been efficient, whether the money has been invested in the right way.
Thank you, District Attorney Gonzalez. Commissioner Houle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Y'all have largely covered what I was hoping to ask about, but I guess just one follow-up question is, DA Gonzalez, do you, you talked about some of those measurements. Do you have measurements, or could you develop some measurements that would define a reduction in the office's budget, or at least the number of prosecutors over a certain amount of time as part of those goals?
I don't have that right now. We are still working on what is the kind of data that we can collect. We're still, I'm 5 months into this job. I sort of came in when the budget process was already in process. So probably if I was doing my request now, it would probably be a little bit different than when I came in January and I didn't have much time to evaluate what there was, right? So, next year it'll be a lot more smoother than what it was this year. And hopefully I can have those figures, but it is something that I'm willing to work on. And I've spoken with you and a few of the other commissioners about, I want to be as open and transparent and to be working in conjunction because we have the same goals, right? We have the same objectives of what we're trying to do, and that is to have a safe community and make it thriving. So I hope that helps. I know it's not the exact, yes, here are the numbers, but we are working on getting them.
Great. And then time for one more question from Commissioner Wright.
Thank you. Great to see you, District Attorney Gonzalez. Tell us about your budget request and how that might help us with the 40 or more unsolved homicides that we have that go back to like 1970.
Okay, so we do not have a cold case unit in this office. It was something that was sort of spoken about by my predecessor, but nothing had ever been done about it. In fact, when I came into the office, I found an office that had just all of these binders of all of these unsolved cases, but nothing was ever done with them. Because of the backlog, we're not looking at that at least for another year because we just can't. We have to get through what's happening now. Okay. Of course, should a lead come in, should something come in or somebody come and say, hey, we've got some information, we will take that information at that point. We can look at it. But as of right now, we will not be looking at any cold case for at least the next year.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, District Attorney Gonzalez, and for your presentation. We appreciate your time this afternoon as we consider these requests moving forward. Next
Thank you so much.
Yes, you bet. Next on deck, we've got Judge Amanda Trimble, and Elisa Zarate.
I think Ms. Zarate encountered some technical difficulties and was not able to join us this evening. She's with me via text, so if I'm looking down at my phone, she may prompt me to say some things. But thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Primarily, I want to be here to answer any questions similar in some ways to DA Gonzalez. I've been in this particular position months now, and I'm finding that a lot of people, and this may not be true for all of you, have questions about exactly what we do in juvenile court. So I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to ask those questions. I love to talk about what we do. To get to the specific budget issues, my understanding is that the requested increase for our part-time judge position to 4 days a week has been recommended by the mayor. Our calendar desperately needs that. We have been short-staffed, short-handed for quite some time. I was in the part-time position before, and I'll tell you, I worked full-time. We never increased it, and that's okay. That's what I was able to do, but it's needed that increase, and I'm grateful for that recommendation. I also wanted to touch on the requested increase that has not been recommended for the 2 family treatment court positions. I understand that because those are grant funded, one fully and one at 50%, that's not recommended this year. I will say that we will have to continue asking for that. Part of our acceptance of this grant award package is a requirement that we seek sustainability every year. So I think the train of thought of our federal and state funders is that the pool of grant funds will remain the same with more accountability courts coming online. So over time, our piece of that funding will get smaller and smaller. And I think the hope of the funders is that those costs will ultimately and eventually be transferred over to the communities those courts serve. So we'll continue making that request because, frankly, we have to. And I'm happy to answer any questions about either of those or anything else you may have.
Great. Thank you, Judge Trimble.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Commissioner Davenport. You're muted.
Have I, Commissioner Parker moment? Sorry about that. So yeah, can you go over the senior case management specialist, for from a landlord's perspective?
Sure. I won't say her name because I don't know if she wants me to in public, but she is our powerhouse position in a lot of ways for Family Treatment Court. So I'm going to back up just a little bit and explain what Family Treatment Court does. We are an accountability court similar to felony drug court or DUI drug court or TAC, the Treatment and Accountability Court, in that we have a team of providers who assess the needs, in our case, of parents who are at risk of losing custody of their children or who have lost custody of their children due to substance use and abuse issues, right? So we are funded for a maximum of 35 individual parents. And then, of course, we provide services to their children as well. And the case management position is the person who has contact daily with all 35 of our participants. I won't say daily, all 35, but on a daily basis with our participants. So she also is right now a contract employee from Advantage because of the way her funding works. So she provides services as well. She is a person herself in long-term recovery who has then received certifications to be able to be a treatment provider. And she does I say a lot of the heavy lifting for our daily contact, the management of each parent's individual case, making sure they get to their treatment groups on time and that those are appropriate, etc. She does a lot more than that, but I don't want to give you more information than you want. So please let me know if you'd like more specifics.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Commissioner Myers.
Judge Trimble, and you said that senior case management specialist had 50 family units that he or she was working with, or
35 is our maximum that we're funded for. I mean, I think she could possibly do a little bit more because she's willing to, but right now we're funded for a maximum of 35. I think we have 30 right now with a wait list. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And there is a wait list. And these are all Clarke County families?
Clarke and Oconee. The bulk of it is Clarke.
Okay. Does Oconee County contribute anything to this?
I am not aware of that. I know that, I don't want to say I know. Let me say I think that they contribute sort of a pro rata, if that's the right way to think of it, based on population share of budget in general. But I wouldn't feel comfortable saying any of that's particularly earmarked for any one thing. I can definitely research that and get you that information, though, because it's a good question.
Thank you.
Just briefly on the Oconee County front, what I'm seeking with Oconee County is a standing MOU, so we have a funding plan that can be durable and sustainable rather than having to be revisited. That would be based on probably some every 2-year review of caseload.
Great.
That sounds like a great idea.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Vinson.
Thanks. I said one. Thank you for being with us, Judge Trimble. And I'm guessing this is just a bit of the way data is kind of processed and stuff in the past years. But I was looking at the budget and the number of total cases filed in juvenile court dropped drastically in calendar year 2018 and moving forward. And I was wondering if you could explain exactly what that drastic drop was.
It was a change, to the best of my understanding, it's a change in the way cases are numbered in our uniform juvenile court rules. So historically, every document that was filed in a juvenile court was given a separate case number, not because of local procedure, but that was state law. So, for example, if a parent had a dependency case, a child abuse and neglect case filed, that initial petition would have a case number. then a motion that was for that same case would have a case number. And then a response to that would have I don't think that's right. Anything that had a complaint attached to begin part of a proceeding had a separate case number. So once that numbering system changed, now each child in a family has a case number for one particular case. So I think that's a result of that drastic change in our case numbering.
Something like that, but thank you for the clarification. It helps.
No, absolutely. It looks like a massive shift. Then I will say that one thing to keep in mind that helps me when I'm looking at some of the data for our dependency cases is that our number of children in foster care can be a good indicator of what's going on. And right now, this has been true for the time that I've been here. We hover around 300 children in foster care for Athens-Clarke County. That does not include Oconee. Oconee, to give you a reference point, has around 20 children in foster care.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good information. Any final questions from commissioners? All right, that looks to be it. Thanks so much for your time, Judge Trimble.
Thank you all.
Okay, next up, we have a duet of state court judges, Judge Oslander and Chief Judge Simpson. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Judge Oslander and I are very grateful for the support that you provide to state court, and we would respectfully request that you adopt the mayor's recommended budget as recommended. And again, we just are very grateful for your support of our work. And Judge Oslander and I will take any questions that you have about our budget.
Great. Thank you, Judge. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Houle.
Thanks for being here, y'all. Judge Oslander, could you speak to some of the broader context of the vision you're kind of outlining this fitting into in the years to come? I know we talked a little bit about that before today.
Sure. Well, I mean, one thing that I've noticed from this commission is their commitment to intervention, to try to keep people out of the criminal justice system before they even get involved. And to me, that is incredibly important with what you guys are looking at with pre-arrest diversion, the crisis response teams, and the alternative response teams, if that ends up being funded. Obviously, Judge Simpson and I handle cases after they're in the system. And so we have a lot of accountability courts, but treatment courts, at least as far as the evidence and studies, they are the most studied intervention, which is post-arrest only, of course, but they are the most successful. And so what I think Judge Simpson and I and a lot of the judges look at it, there's a lot of pieces that accountability courts are doing that also line up with what the commission is interested in doing, both with pre-arrest and pre-trial diversion. And so my ultimate thought, and I think our judges would be looking towards even having like a treatment services division at some point that would align a lot of what we're doing post-arrest or post-adjudication with some of the priorities that you guys have pre-arrest and pre-adjudication. And that's not on the table today, but if that's what you're talking about, Commissioner Huell, I think it would match up with what I hear a lot of you guys championing, interventions to help people with mental health, substance use disorder, employment, education, other issues that they need help with to live stable and productive lifestyles.
Thank you, Judge. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, looks great. Thank you, State Court Judges Oslander and Simpson, for joining us this afternoon as we work through the budget. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. Okay, last up, we have Circuit Public Defender John Donnelly. Mr. Donnelly, take it away, sir. You're muted, sir.
I don't think I am muted. I just
we got you. Now we can hear you.
A moment of silence, as I'm not sure what you want to know. I just got this invitation a couple hours ago. Just want me to justify the request for the increase. It's really, if that's the question before me, it really is to go towards the assistant public defender salaries. The request that I made to increase our budget is less than 2%. It's something like 1.6, 1.7%. And historically, the assistant prosecutors, whether they're in the solicitor's office or the district attorney's office, have made 5, 10 to 20% more than the assistant public defenders. And I keep trying to get our lawyers caught up closer to them. I don't know, it might be unrealistic to expect true parity among them, but that's the platonic ideal, and I keep chasing it every year, and anyway, so it's just to try to keep us from getting too far behind. That's all that is.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Any questions from my colleagues?
Not asking for no new positions requested.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Okay, I've got Commissioner Myers, then Commissioner Wright.
Hi, thanks for being here. I just wondered if you could address any challenges you have hiring staff and attorneys because of this disparity here in salaries, and I don't know how our salaries here compare to the Atlanta area either. So if you could just address that a little bit, that'd be great.
Well, so okay, that's a good question. Historically, it hasn't been too difficult to recruit new lawyers out of law school, and the starting salaries really haven't been that out of whack with other agencies. But we find that after a few years of experience, when the person's market value, that's when we have trouble competing. And that's when we also notice that their counterparts in the prosecutor's office will be significantly higher. And so after 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it's common for people to leave. We have 2 excellent lawyers leaving this summer. I have the positions advertised, and I'm having trouble. I think that this is just the market right now, but I'm having trouble. It looks like so far I'm having trouble filling those positions.
Right.
Can I just follow up on that? Are there levels? I mean, I haven't.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. It's really hard work. It's really stressful work. When you have a client and their family who are under a great deal of stress, facing criminal prosecution and this criminal sanction that could be very significant and could be, really a life-changing situation.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that. Appreciate it. My sister spent.
So people rarely come here after some other job. People start here and they either can't, they've had enough and they want to go somewhere like a prosecutor's office or the county attorney's office where they don't have to live with that kind of stress. But rarely do people want to come here mid-career.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Commissioner Wright.
Yes, I wanted to thank you, even with this late notice. I'm not sure why it was a late notice, but I'm glad you could make it to answer any questions. But I do appreciate your continuing to let us know what you need, because I personally want to make sure you have the support you need so that you have a strong group working and our public defenders as our public defenders. And are you this amount you're going to be able to give sort of like stipend type salary increases for the positions?
It would be some of the people who have been here for 2 years or more would get like a 2% increase. I mean, it's nothing that significant.
Right. Well, I know even just a little bit can help morale, help a little bit.
Sure.
A little bit can go a long way, and I hope that it also helps you, because I think retention, so that those who this sort of challenging work suits them to continue to develop in and be a better asset for our community. I applaud you asking us for funds to help you with that, to help our community.
Well, we appreciate your support, and I didn't mean to imply that someone fell down by not giving me more advance notice. I was just explaining why. I paused at the beginning because I wasn't sure, what I was supposed to launch into.
No, I would imply that. We've been asking for like a week, so yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Denson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for being here with us, John, and for everything that you and your office do. I wondered if you could just quickly elaborate a little bit about the work that the social worker position that was funded last year is doing in your office, and if that has been proven to be ample, or if there seems to be a greater need for that work than what is able to be supplied right now.
Okay, so yes, the commission did fund a new support staff position as labeled a social worker, and so we didn't fill that position until a couple months ago, and the reason was that courts were a little slower, the need was not as great, and also because we were largely, we were trying to cut down on the people working in the office, and it just didn't feel like a good time to bring in a new person and try to train a new person in that environment, because obviously the money was approved, right? My request was made, and then that was approved, before the pandemic hit. So in any event, we do have the position filled, and she seems to be doing a great job. I don't, I think she's gonna be a huge help. She is basically a liaison with primarily juvenile court cases and state court cases, or clients in those courts who need some extra legal assistance in, with whether it's some kind of recovery program or mental health treatment, or tracking down school records, talking to the school counselors, usually with an eye towards some sort of helping to mitigate the disposition of the case, or finding an alternative type sentence for the person. But she is, she's jumped right in, and she's doing a great job. It's a big help.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem, if I can just add, this is more of a request, I guess, to staff, but on this budget and every budget that I've seen going back, we don't get the same elaborate breakdown of the public defender's requests and allocations. It's literally one sentence that explains how much is going to it without any details. So I would request, I think it'd be very helpful for us moving forward if we had the same kind of breakdown. And I understand it's a little bit different because it's a contract with the Public Defender Standards Council, but still, we had that same breakdown so that we could have all the criteria that we need to make these decisions.
Is that something you can look into helping with, Manager Williams, and get back to us?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, sir.
I had something to offer, Mayor Pro Tem, if I might.
Sure. Then Commissioner Hull. Go ahead, Manager.
Thank you. My apologies, Commissioner Hull. So on the topic of attorney pay, and Commissioner Myers, you were about to ask if there were different levels of attorneys, and there are. And I would say that, in some of our professional designations, such as attorneys or engineers, we have a hard time competing with the private sector due to our pay levels. I can tell you that it's been very difficult to hire a PE, a public engineer in public utilities. The environmental engineer has basically been vacant for 2 or 3 years. With the respect to the attorneys, Public Defender Donnelly mentioned that he's got a couple of vacancies, and you all both know that Attorney Drake has 2 vacancies as well. And so we did look at, as opposed to just selectively increasing some salaries over here, it is difficult work, and it does span multiple, solicitors, DA, public defender, attorney's office. To adjust the pay, to make a market adjustment on the attorneys, at least a year or 2 ago was in the order of $100,000. So that brings some parity to, attorneys across the organization that are funded by Athens-Clarke County. And then, and certainly the DA and the public defender can speak to this, there's a little bit of a complicating factor for state paid ADAs or public defenders who have supplements, which one of you referenced. That's another matter as well. But I would just say parity and equity is important. It's cost. This goes back to the discussion on the $15 an hour. It's important that you be fair to all the attorneys if possible. It would be ideal, and I don't think anybody would disagree from the public defenders or the DA's office or solicitor or attorney, if we could increase the pay for all the attorneys to be competitive and be able to not only retain them, but recruit, good talent, because it is difficult work. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Commissioner Houle, then Commissioner Thornton, and then I think we'll be wrapped up. Go for it, Commissioner Houle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question for you, Attorney Donnelly. I'm wondering if you could help enlighten us on the costs that go into your office beyond just like paying attorneys and staff. For example, my understanding is that the facility you're in is not I don't know if it's an ACC facility that you pay rent to, or if it's somewhere else, but I think you're paying rent in a way that might be different for other courts or offices that are constitutional officers. And then also if there are costs associated with like support for clients and their families and things, clothing and such. And who pays all that?
So the second part of the question, we have an operating budget that the counties both, and we are, we cover the Western Circuit, and that is by statute that creates the Georgia Public Defender Council. So we are also funded by Oconee County. And so the second part of your question, though, yes, we have an operating budget for just, the cost of running an office, with, the copiers, the computers, the paper, the books, the legal materials. And then yes, we rent this space. And we are in the, what's the name of this building? I'm drawing a blank on the name of this building, but, we're right a block from the courthouse, and we are very happy here, but we, I have talked to the mayor and manager in years past, it's been a while, about the possibility of moving us into county office. Obviously, the courthouse doesn't have room. We don't want to be in the courthouse. We don't want to be looked at as part of, the system. But anyways, we would go to, is it the Costa building? I think that's probably off limits to us. There was a different building that the county, I think, has sold since then, that we, I have put that out there to people, alternative locations. If the county wants to do that to save money in the long run, we're willing to do that. We also like it here. So, Oconee County pays approximately 25% of the rent. And then Clarke County pays the other part.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Donnelly. Commissioner Thornton, questions on the public defender's budget request?
It's always good to see you, Mr. Attorney Donnelly. I just attended an event Sunday, the Juvenile Offender Advocate Program with Gilletta Sanders. Have you had a conversation? It seems like this program has a lot of possibilities and could support the work you're doing in the public defender's office. Has there been a conversation of how this could intertwine with your work in the courts?
A little bit. I'm vaguely aware of that program. I was not aware that they had actually, I know that it's been talked about for a long time, but I didn't know that they actually had started as far as taking clients yet. But I personally have not had a conversation with Ms. Sanders. I've been on some emails with her about the program, and I think that we have a lawyer assigned to juvenile court, and I know that she has had conversations with Ms. Sanders about the program, but I'm not aware that they're up and running with actual clients yet, but I could be wrong.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. All right. Mr. Donnelly, thank you for your time.
And after someone mentioned, I think Blaine mentioned the county supplements. Yes. So all three, our office is, we're a state agency basically. And as someone mentioned, the counties contract with us, but the Public Defender Council does manages us as employees and pays our salaries. But so we have a few employees who are state funded. Most of the employees here are county funded. That's the same with the DA's office and the solicitor's office. But as I understand it, all of the lawyers in the DA's office who are state funded also get a county supplement. But none of the assistant public defenders get a county supplement, those that are state funded. I just wanted to put that out.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly, and thank you for your time this afternoon as we work towards your budget. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, and thank you for the hard work that goes into this.
Thanks. Oh, it's not so hard, is it, colleagues? We're going to have a great night here together. So we've got about another hour and 15 minutes.
And Russell.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Edwards. Did I tell you that we are hiring?
All right. Jobs available. Thank you, sir. We'll help spread that word for you. So we got about another hour and 15 minutes. So I'd like to start off the meeting with any latent questions or clarifications members, colleagues might have for the manager or for staff. And then we can move towards another circulation of input from everybody regarding their top 2 or 3 budget amendment priorities. And then we can also go around again and reiterate those budget items that we would like to see moved off to free up funds for our priorities. So let's just go ahead and go in order. We can save ourselves the hand space. We can just go 1, 2, 3. I mean, so we got to start with number 1. So Commissioner Davenport, any input or clarification needed from the manager or staff?
Not currently.
Okay. We could always come back to you too, no problem. Commissioner Parker? You're muted.
Okay. So my first question is regarding my proposal for the municipal community garden pilot. I was looking at the Green Space Acquisition SPLOST program and saw that part of the project description is developing facilities to expand local food production distribution and funding equipment used for natural area restoration, and was wondering if a part of those funds, which I believe are available in FY22, could be used towards the capital costs for that project.
Manager Williams, any input? Output?
Yes, Commissioner Parker, we'll look at that project description and give you our interpretation of that.
Great.
Hopefully tomorrow. Great,
because if a part or all of the funding for the land acquisition and remediation could come from that program, that would bring the cost of the program down to $50,000, which would be amazing.
Well, if I might, so there is, a process for nominating properties that
yes.
Have about all that. Yeah. Okay.
Right. I imagine it would have to go through the advisory committee to ensure it matches the project description, et cetera. So I guess we couldn't just assume that it would be a fine and work off of that assumption for the budget, but we could to see if it would be fitting and perhaps ultimately have less capital costs than anticipated. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's great to know. Yes, 2 more questions. So let's see. I had questions regarding the number of cars that were the police vehicles that were leaving the county versus those that are staying in the county as part of the police take-home program, which we initiated in 2019. Because I have had questions among my constituents about ways we can incentivize officers to live within the county. And so that then brought me back to, I think, a question that I had raised at a previous meeting about the additional funding requested for replacement vehicles in the police department, which I think in total for the additional like cars, not like motorcycles and all that other stuff that they requested, was about $470,000. And so I was wondering if that part of their budget request return to the general, well, I shouldn't say return to the general fund. If we revisited the out of county car take home program and perhaps were able to generate cost savings in less vehicle wear and tear because fewer vehicles are getting miles, fewer people are taking them home, et cetera. If that money could then that would necessitate fewer vehicles replaced in FY22, and if then that money would return to the vehicle replacement fund, or if it would return to the general fund. So I guess there's a couple layers of questions there. I'm sorry if it's a little rapid fire, but I guess requesting more information in general regarding potential cost savings of revisiting the out of county car take home program, and whether or not those savings would return to the vehicle replacement fund or the general fund.
I can address that, Mayor Pro Tem.
You're basically trying to get how much capital costs will we save if we discontinue the take-home program for out-of-county police officers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then anything else?
So a question I feel like we've kind of been dancing around is about the Bearcat. I laugh because it's just so funny to me that we have this tank effectively. So I guess my question is, in the breakdown of some of the quote unquote military assets that the ACCPD is in possession of, well, I guess it had two parts here. So in that list, I just wanted to make sure it was comprehensive to include any assets that could be considered military grade that ACCPD has. In the response, it seemed like they were very responsive to Commissioner Hoole's request regarding specific things like tear gas. And then, we had mentioned the armored truck a couple of times, but I want to know about any assets and their value that they have, not necessarily whether or not they appear in the FY22 budget. Because, and this leads to my second question, I wanted to know about policies in place that may prevent us from selling such assets in order to both, redirect those monies towards more preventative forms of public safety and save ourselves in maintenance insurance costs. So just going to go ahead and put that out there.
All right. So you want to know, maybe you can follow this up with a direct request for the manager via email.
Yes, absolutely.
You want a more comprehensive list of all of the quote military grade assets owned by the police department.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Got it.
May I respond to a couple things, Mayor Pro Tem?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I will tell you that Mayor Denson instituted a stipend. Well, the mayor and commission approved it, of course, for officers that lived in county, and that is still in place today. And I won't speak for anybody, but I think the thinking was that we did want folks to live in the community. And so that was a way to incentivize them. What we found that it was highly divisive, and still is. And the reason being, because I heard the other side of this. Well, we're not depriving you of anything. You have a choice if you want to live in or out of the county. But, whether it's people living on their family land or whatever. And it's true of really our workforce across, we're a regional employment center and people do live outside the county. What I've heard most consistently from police officers is, regardless if we live right across this imaginary line, we're still putting our lives on the line and we still feel like we're, as valuable as any other police officer. So that's one thing. Chief Sproul did ask, and Chief Freeman before him, about the take-home program as a just another way to try to help with recruitment and retention. Other departments do this, and what they found also anecdotally was that the cars were better taken care of if they weren't a hot car where, it just, you pass it along from officer to officer, from shift to shift, and somebody actually got to take care of their car. So those are some of the reasons why, and we can revisit all those. And then move into the Bearcat. I believe the Bearcat was acquired again as a regional center, and not unlike, I think we have a chemical spill truck or a hazardous materials response vehicle where GEMA or another state agency says, look, we'll give you the asset if you're willing to share it with the counties around you. And so I think that's how we came to get the Bearcat. It is a bit of an imposing vehicle. I do know that both in the last, I came from Rome, Floyd County. I was a manager there, and they had a Bearcat because they were a regional center as well. And they didn't run up and down the road and chase citizens down in the Bearcat. It was used in very highly specific situations. I recall one time, and again anecdotally, where there was a hostage situation and a police officer was down. They pulled the Bearcat up to shield the officer that was down from and get them into the vehicle and move away. So there are some uses for it, but we can certainly, I didn't want it to seem like we'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in acquiring it. It's one of those things that we were given by the state if we would agree to share it with others.
Yeah, I was aware of that history, that it was, I think, given to us by the Department of Homeland Security. And so I didn't know if that somehow prevented us from transferring it. Those savings on maintenance and insurance, could be put towards making sure people don't end up in crisis in the first place. So just understanding what policies exist around that. So just to understand the feasibility of that option.
Great.
Well, yeah. Oh, and I had one more thing, actually, because we had a lot of people come out and speak on Tuesday about the importance of youth development with regards to combating the gun violence epidemic in our community. And so when we do our other go around, I'm going to speak to that a little bit more about investments I think are necessary. But one thing I wanted to find out, as just since we're doing questions right now, is whether or not we are able to partner with community organizations that do youth development and direct funding to them. Because I know with, especially during COVID, we've discovered a lot about, the restrictions of the gratuities clause regarding what sorts of community initiatives outside the government we're allowed to fund. But I do think there are a lot of people in the community doing good work that could use our support. So, and ultimately, if not through the general fund, through, American Rescue Plan money, that's a very, very valuable direction to put our public safety dollars. And so I would just like to understand better what, perhaps from the attorney's office, if any restrictions exist around the feasibility of such partnerships. With in mind, I'll add this as well, and then I'll stop, that the CDC has actually defined gun violence as a public health issue, and that youth development is gun violence prevention, which is healthcare. And so under the definition of indigent services, I know healthcare is one of the criteria or the service areas we are allowed to fund. And so I just wanted to make that known and see if that then influences at all our ability to invest in youth organizations outside of our existing leisure services programming. But that's it. I swear, I'm done.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a response.
Okay, real quick, thanks, Manager.
Yes. Okay, and well, actually, this may speak to some future questions as well, at least on the independent agencies. And so, is it possible for the commission to allocate funds to youth organizations? Of course. And that takes its way through CDBG and, any number of processes that we already have in place. And you get to help decide that. I think one of the things that you have to ask is this a sole source? Is this particular agency the only one that provides this service? And if it's not, and I talked with Judd briefly about this, and the attorney's office will prepare something, then we would suggest that you have some type of process by which folks can apply, and there's criteria that's transmitted, and folks are able to participate and submit if they'd like to and compete. And then ultimately, there would be an advisory group or staff or whoever that would recommend some for funding with all the criteria. You would make the decisions in the end. It's a little more trouble, but I think nobody can say they were left out or there was the system was gamed or anything like that. So we would suggest that you consider a competitive process if you can't defend that what's being provided isn't sole source.
That is very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Good point, Manager Williams. All right, Commissioner Link. You're muted. Can't hear you. All right, we'll come back to you. Commissioner Meyer or Commissioner Wright?
Hey there, thanks. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my computer. There's a delay.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to reiterate some of the stuff I brought up before. I'm getting requests from my constituents for the quiet zone funding. I'd like us to, at the very least.
Okay, hold on, just one second. Sorry to interrupt you. This time, I'm hoping we can go around quickly and get any clarification or further questions from staff before we go around and talk about our priorities and things we'd like to take away.
Okay.
So theoretically, this could go really quick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still interested in hearing more about ARP funds replacing some of the requests in the budget. We did see the coroner's request, and he mentioned PPE and body bags and things that were a result of COVID related expenses. We might want to look at ARP funds for stuff like that. So, yeah, and I'm not sure if I got any response to my questions about the neighborhood traffic management program and the need to have a larger pot of funds for that now that we've expanded the criteria for that program.
No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Manager Williams, so Commissioner Link, what was your question about the ARP?
About going through the budget and identifying all places where the funding could be replaced by ARP funds, because we have a lot of other coming from many different commissioners, and there's all good stuff, and we have to cut and hunt and peck and cut and slice. So I'd like to see a comprehensive list of all items that could be qualify for ARP funding. Okay,
well, but we're going to decide how to distribute ARP. So I think that might, I get where you're going. This might come up in our priorities round robin, but because the way I envision it, if someone has a priority that could likely be funded by ARP, then it becomes less of a priority within this budget cycle, in my mind.
Well, and I'm talking about stuff that may not be priority. That may already be in the budget. That may not be part of our extra priority.
Okay. So then we can talk about, so then maybe in that discussion about what we could take off, what we can maybe cut out of this budget and move to ARP. Okay. Yeah. So we'll do that round after we talk about priorities. But Manager Williams, did you have something you want to say about the neighborhood traffic management capital fund?
Yes, and Commissioner Link, and certainly we can put this in the packet of questions and answers, but the same night that you brought that up, I agree with you that there certainly should be some funds in there because we have already received multiple requests, and we don't have a magic number. I mean, we can give you an estimate, but it's we're gonna, and I will also follow up with a process that we would suggest that we take all these in. There have to be some studies done, preferably in the fall when the students are back in session, and then staff would bring to you towards the end of the year a list of prioritized NTMP projects, and then you would decide, and those would be charged against this pot of money, and when the money ran out is when we would stop and defer to the next budget year. So we absolutely agree as staff that you would want to program some more funds, and we can.
So Manager Williams, by Tuesday, could you kind of give us just a back of the envelope idea of what a capital fund could cover? How much?
Sure.
How much? Say, hey, if you put $30K in this, we can get 50 speed bumps, something like that.
Well, here's the thing, and Commissioner Edwards, I know we were recently meeting with some of your constituents on a project as well. There's a number of interventions, if you will, that could be selected, and it's really suited towards, that particular situation. So it could be
right. But just to give us an idea of what the traffic remediation infrastructure costs, so we have a general idea of how much we want to put in this pot.
Sure, and we'll do more than that. We'll give you just sort of a general average for one that might be slightly more or less than it actually turns out, and an aggregate number that you could shoot for the budget.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Manager Williams, is Athens in Motion going to be involved in this process at all? I would suggest that would be a good idea to get them involved in the front end.
Involved in
budget? The budget estimate or the NTMP?
As far as like, tweaking the NTMP, now that we have all these new criteria, and maybe like making the initial analysis of, you say you're going to present us with a list. Maybe AIM should see that list first. And
okay, but that's farther down the road. We won't have that list till the fall.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
Well, we're going to follow the recently approved process at this point.
Okay. Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, due to the lack of abundance funds, I'm going to stick with the two priorities that I think we have money to align to, and that's district services request for 2 full-time people at a hotel motel. So if I could get some clarification on the leftover $270,000 of hotel motel to make sure we have the money we need out of that after the required part goes. I don't know if that's the required part that goes to Classic Center and CBB. Blaine, is my question clear?
Yeah, what's your question again? I lost you.
How much of last year's leftover hotel motel is available for us? And I would like to prioritize that for the corridor landscape 2 full-time employees.
Okay, so like the hotel motel fund balance, unspent hotel motel. Gotcha.
Thanks for helping me translate.
I think all of it was programmed in the mayor's recommended budget, so there wasn't any additional fund balance to distribute, but I can verify that.
Yeah, if you can verify what looks like a fund balance to be used for that. And I also would like to clarify that funds from unfilled positions of last year could be used for the $28,000 the public defender's asking for.
Okay.
Seems like with all the vacancies. So I'm going to stick with those two priorities due to the lack of ability to find more money to spend on anything else.
Well, yeah, and we'll go around with the priorities, but did you have any clarifying questions for staff, Commissioner Wright?
I wanted to make sure that I just want clarification that for those two, that the funds are available for those two priorities.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Any other clarifying questions before we go around and talk priorities? Commissioner Denson.
Yes, I have 3 for staff. The first one being, I would love staff to research and talk to the constitutional officers that we spoke to tonight and any other ones to see if there's any potential American Rescue funds that they will be receiving directly that will be federally distributed or state distributed that they might be getting here that could be helping with any of these costs and any other programming too. Another question is, and somewhat building on Commissioner Wright's request about positions that were filled late last year, are there any positions that we have scheduled coming on this year that we likely see being filled in a later quarter than the first quarter that we might have some savings there? And then my last question being, how much general funds are being transferred this year into the fleet replacement fund, and specifically around some of the public safety requests, especially since we just filled some of those in an agenda item just what was that 2 months ago, to see if there could be any savings there, especially savings that we could be using to transition to some youth development programming. So those are my three. I know I went through them fast, so if Blaine, if you need me to repeat anything, I'm happy to.
Great. We will, and maybe just as a courtesy, Commissioner, all the commissioners, you could send these clarifying questions to the manager so you can have them prepared by Tuesday.
That would be helpful. Thank you, sir.
All right, Commissioner Houle, any clarifying questions from staff you'd like to highlight at this time?
Yeah, I got a few. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know staff's been working real hard for our seemingly record number of questions this year, so I really want to appreciate them for the hard work to get all this stuff back to us. I'm still looking for clarity, and maybe this was in some of the stuff we got today, but if we want to fund a disparity study, just what else we need to do besides allocate the funds to make that happen. And I guess similarly, some clarification around if we want to alter the vehicle take-home policy, if there's something in addition to just the budget reprioritization that would need to happen there. Regarding the Bearcat, so I saw the insurance cost response to that made it sound like all vehicles basically cost the same in our insurance. So whether you have a very large vehicle that might have a lot of liability or valuable components, or a smaller vehicle like just a kind of a patrol car or something, is that how our insurance policy works? If we remove a vehicle regardless of its size, we'd only save $700 regardless of what that vehicle is?
I will verify this, Commissioner Houle, with safety and risk, but my understanding is we have such a vast amount of insured assets that it's really this big blanket policy that to give you a figure, that's basically how they backed into it to come up with that. So it is my understanding that that's how that's done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So removing particularly large vehicles has the same effect as removing particularly small vehicles?
I believe at the time of the insurance renewal, we present this, asset inventory, if you will, and then they give us a blanket number. I don't believe that there's micro-surgical removals, anytime something comes out, we report it to the insurance carrier or not. But I'm starting to speak beyond my knowledge, so let me confirm that with staff.
Okay, thanks. And then I'd love to get a breakdown of our anticipated use of inmate labor per department. I think that'd just be very helpful to inform us moving forward. And then this is a question maybe for Commissioners Parker or Hamby, because I think they're on the Justice and Memory Committee, but did we get what the Linentown folks, the Justice and Memory folks' priorities were?
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem, may I take a moment? I don't know if these have been forwarded to the full commission. We did pass them on Monday, but I'd be happy to lend some insight into those briefly, if I may.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah. Do you want to keep going when we come back to priorities? Maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. It might take me a second to pull them up. Yeah.
Okay, good.
That would just be helpful because, our resolution said that we were going to commit to honoring that input and how we approached our budget. So I feel like it would be helpful to know that before we make final decisions. I guess the last question is kind of getting to the vehicle take-home policy. So I saw that 236 total figure. Is that 236 total patrol vehicles, and basically 35 of them don't go home and about half go home inside the county and half go home outside the county? Or does that 236 include all the vehicles, including like the Bearcat, since we keep talking about that and such?
That'd be all the vehicles, if I guess. We got 160 something officers, don't we manage it?
Because this makes it sound like there's 201 patrol vehicles that go home with officers and then another 35 that are something else.
Yeah, well, get some clarity on those.
Yeah, we've got, and remember, we have a lot of vacancies as well. So we just don't have cars sitting around. But yeah, over 200 sworn officers for sure. And then we've got detectives' vehicles and things of that nature. So we'll get you a full accounting of that.
Okay, thanks. And then the last thing just is maybe for you, Mayor Pro Tem. Since we already did our top priorities in the last meeting and have a list of those prepared, I think by staff, maybe Clerk Spratlin, which was great. May I suggest that we utilize our time in this meeting to maybe work through those one at a time, at least the ones that seem to have a lot of consensus in the last meeting, just to kind of see what's unanimous or what's marginal and what's in between, and then we could use.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. I got nothing. Go ahead, Commissioner Myers.
Okay. These are things that I had asked about that I have not heard a response for. Oh gosh, where did that go again? Anyway, one was having to do with pension increases. And I wanted to know if we had anything in here for pensions. And then I asked what were the pension increases over the last 10 years. And then interestingly today, when I got a copy of the BLM, Black Lives Matter resolution, what is one of the therefores? The unified government will review annually possible options to support a cost of living increase for retirees. So that fits right in there. Likewise, I'd like to see what the I had asked for something about just the pay for everyone on staff, and if I could get like a 10-year back of what the pay raise increases were and how much that was cost of living versus like increase, like how much were there years that people just got an automatic cost of living, so I could see how people were doing. The other thing I had asked about was the youth programs that I'd like to see, since we're talking about that, and whether or not we could get just the copy of that, or someone to compile those all. And while we're there, I will mention in response to Commissioner Parker that I know in the past that we contracted out for tennis programs for years. So I think I might have had something else that I put in the email, but I seem to have switched out of that. So, and if there's another one on that list, Manager Williams, would you please respond to that fourth item too, if there is one? Oh, I know, the job description for the sustainability person. I wanted to get a hold of that, and I haven't seen that yet. Thank you.
Great. And again, if everyone would just make sure you get your questions in to the manager so we can get those before Tuesday. Commissioner Thornton.
I think I'm in the same vein as some of the other commissioners about the youth programs and the recreational department's budget. It just was overwhelming for me. Manager Blaine, I was wondering, and maybe it was there and I just missed it, with Grand Slam, which everyone relates to, can we look at the budget, or can we find the numbers for the past Grand Slam, not last year, like the early Grand Slam, compared to what we had this past year before COVID, to see the difference? Because every person in their 40s and between their 40s and 30s, maybe 50 to 30, talks about the impact of Grand Slam. So I know we did one, I guess last year or the year before, but I'm talking about the budget when we had a full-blown Grand Slam project, and to look at that as one of the ways we address youth programs and anti-gay activities. I'm definitely on board with the corridor committee for the 2 employees. And the other thing, when I'm talking about the youth activities, we talk about Advantage. That probably is the hook of mental health in this area. And I guess what I'm trying to find out is how we can make sure, or how can we enhance the services through Advantage to deal with some of the youth issues that many people are attributing to mental health. And I know we probably won't have the answer in Tuesday, but those are my questions. And the last thing, when we give money, yeah, I guess we do give money. When organizations receive money from us, and then they are receiving monies maybe bigger from other sources. Do we have a record of that? I mean, or is that not our business? So if we give somebody $100,000 and they write a program and get 300,000. I'm not suggesting taking it back, but do we have any idea of what some of these nonprofits are bringing back, just because they may have gotten a seed with us? And again, Manager Blaine, I know this is a new question, so don't try to answer it. I'll send it to you. And I'm thinking about two particular nonprofits as I speak, but I do want to put that out to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton.
And just for distinction, Mayor Pro Tem, if I might, so if you do have a type of process where folks apply for a program, I think there is the opportunity to ask if there's other sources of funding. So we would find out there, as well as far as requiring it like an audit of, entire sources of funding for an agency. That's typically not information that we get, maybe with some of the federal compliance, but we will look into that question, Commissioner Thornton. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we also look into organizations that may have abused funding? Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hamby.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm gonna piggyback on the corridor thing, and I think I remember during one of our corridor meetings that Director Saunders actually said that those two positions. I know he's listed in the budget at 154, but I think he was able to maneuver and change some things to where it came down to about $100,000, if I'm not wrong on that. Chair Thornton may correct me on that, but that's what I remember that we approved was for those two positions, and Director Saunders maybe. So anyway, I'm trying to find some ways to save some money from all these requests. So that's $100,000 that it seemed to be there at that point in time, and I'll just reiterate again, from the same source of money, the hotel motel tax, an additional $35,000 for some community events, the CEP events that we're not able to have last year for downtown, but I know a lot of organizations, we did still give a lot of the organizations some of the money to put on some sort of alternative event or something of that, or to help keep the organizations going so that they could continue the events this year. It does seem like from the notes, I haven't read completely over the notes that Tim and Chris and the finance department have sent to us, but it looks like the fund balance for the hotel motel tax for FY24 is at $134,000. So there's hopefully that will be an easy go for everybody. I do think we ought to seriously consider what we can do to help the DA's office and the DA's request to see what we can do to meet some of those needs. I know we're asking our courts and our DAs and our public defenders to try to operate in a different way to adapt to a new criminal justice system that we'd like to see. And I think having our support in order to do that would be helpful for the DA, but also for the public defender's office. So those two, or those come to mind right off the bat. But I'm also going to suggest too that, like Commissioner Link said, there's a lot of things that are being requested here that could possibly be utilized from the recovery money. And I know we vote on our budget June 1st, and then we have a following recovery money meeting on June 3rd. It just seems like maybe we ought to, I know the mayor and manager and maybe even the mayor pro tem may all reach through the screen to strangle me, but we may need to postpone the vote on the budget until after we have that June 3rd meeting, so we can figure out what adjustments could be made in the budget based on that June 3rd meeting. So, at any rate, my thoughts on those. I'm sure I'll have more later on.
Great. So we sort of transitioned to the priority discussion. I'm not sure that I did a very good job with the question and clarification. I don't know if that really helped us or not, so I apologize. But let's just keep going with the priorities and let's move backward through the order. So back to Commissioner Thornton, 2 or 3 of your top priorities. And, once we get through these, and I think none of these should come as a surprise to anyone. So I think concise equals persuasive. We all have read this information. We know what we've said in the past meeting. So if we could just run through these and then sort of take a straw poll and see what priorities we have and then see what we can do to get them in the budget. So go ahead, Commissioner Thornton.
I want to make sure I'm answering the right question here, because I think I kind of, okay, let me just go for it. And if I'm not right, you can stop me. One of my priorities, again, is the corridor proposal, the DA's proposal, and my other stuff was questioned. Oh, and the Grand Slam, but it might already be part of the budget already. Okay. Now, what I didn't mention before, and besides the Grand Slam, one of the things I do want to put out there, and we kind of overlooked it, and I wanted to talk to Commissioner Davenport first. I would like to look at the areas of Dunlap and Pitter Road as far as environmental issues. They've been asking for help for a long time. That might just be some testing done, but I do want to put that out there because there has been that conversation. So my priorities is the corridor, DA's office, the Grand Slam, and my add-on is the Dunlap and Pitter Road environmental issues.
Okay, do you have a money figure for the Grand Slam or the Dunlap?
No, that's what I was asking the manager to see what that first the original Grand Slam was compared to what it was at the last year. So I'm hopefully he'll have that before or by Tuesday to put a dollar amount to it.
Okay, good.
And the environmental issue, I am projecting maybe $50,000 just for the testing that we may need to get that started.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioner Myers, top priorities.
Okay, top priority is to increase the salary range for the sustainability coordinator so we can hire someone good if needed. So 15,000, make it like the public office information. 2, fund the district attorney's office as much as possible at the original request. 3, the public defender's request. 4, which no one's brought up lately, the historic preservation study. We talked last year about having a overall plan, and this is the first step. I looked at the details that were presented, and it actually looks like a good deal to me. Oh, I'm giving another one. 4, I have no idea. I've asked about the pensions for the retirees. I have no idea if they ever get pensions, and I haven't gotten that answer, so I don't know what to request there. My understanding from talking to someone yesterday in person was they have not had a cost of living increase. As a state employee, I get 1.5% increase in my pension every 6 months. And if we have people who retired at $30,000 20 years ago and they're not getting any increases, there's a problem. So I'd like to understand that. And I'd also like to understand, and the youth programs as well, Although my gut feeling is we could put a lot of ARP money into that as well. There you go.
Great. Thank you. I'll say public defender's budget. I'd like to put 19,000 into the streetlight capital program. I'd like to put 20,000 into the neighborhood traffic management. And that's my top three for now. Commissioner Houle.
Number one for me is living wages, getting everybody up to that 15. Number two is the advanced behavioral alternative response teams. Seems super critical among pretty much everybody who's working in that field, including some of the judges we heard from today. Number three is the homeless shelter operational funding, getting that independent agency contract established.
Okay. Great. Commissioner Denson.
Yep. Number one for me is also the advanced behavioral health alternative crisis response program. 369,000. Next is the homeless shelter operation funding as an independent agency at least 220,000. And I'm gonna have four on here. The third will be definitely the living wages and finding our way through that. And the fourth one, I know Commissioner Parker brought it up some already, and I know Commissioner Thornton spoke to it also. But I think just the situation that's been happening in our over the last few months and just seems to be growing right now that we've heard so much input from the community is that I think we do need to put aside some specific sizable funding for youth development, specifically trying to target curbing gun violence. And that could also possibly be somehow rolled into us having a gun buyback program that happens periodically over the next fiscal year. So I'm just throwing out a number of like $100,000 for that.
Great. Okay, then we got Commissioner Wright.
Gonna grab some of the other priorities from the other night, so that I guess just to amplify the common part there. I also with you on the streetlight, having a streetlight bucket, a bucket for the neighborhood traffic management, 20,000. I think 20,000 would be a good start for the litter security surveillance cameras. I think the 28,000 for the I did say 20,000 before, right? 20 and then 28,000 for the public defender, the hotel motel money to secure the 2 full-time positions. I do want to make sure everybody realizes, and maybe what we could prioritize in the budget if we don't have a substantial amount of money, is that we had a request for proposal for youth development programming from SPLOS. It was $2.9 million, I believe, and Athens Land Trust won that several requests for proposal several years ago. And it could be that that we don't need to prioritize money out of this budget for that, but we could prioritize following up and getting that plan going, because we do have the money set aside for that already, and it could help with some of these, youth development initiatives that we're talking about. And I think another thing that we could look at is the vacant positions that we've had for a long time, using some of that funding to go to some of these new positions that may be of more interest for people to fill instead of having, and which might fit into the wage study as a priority.
Great. Commissioner Link, have the deer eaten your sunflowers?
Pardon?
Have the deer eaten your sunflowers?
My sunflowers? No, I don't get too many deer in my yard for some reason. I think the coyotes keep them away. I I'm on board with the DA and the public defenders increases, a proper salary for the sustainability coordinator, the mental health response team. I'm also I'm gonna read my
Wait, could you? I'm sorry. DA, public defender. Then what'd you say?
mental health response team.
Okay.
And the historic preservation plan, which is listed as a line item in the budget. Extra stuff, like I'm totally on board with funding for the homeless shelter, but I wonder if that's one of those items that could fall under ARP, at least for this year, and then we take a long look at overall homelessness needs in the community and figure out a way to fund these on a regular basis through our budget every year. The kind of extra things that are priorities for me include that quiet zone and proper funding for the neighborhood traffic management program. And I understand the quiet zone, it's just $6,000 just to get that issue started, and then get it rolled into a T-SPLOS program. And as far as the neighborhood traffic management program, from what I understand, a single speed bump can cost several $1,000s. So I'm thinking the money numbers y'all are quoting are quite low. And really, in order for speed bumps to be effective, you really need them every couple hundred feet. So I'd like some clarification from staff, from traffic engineering staff, about ideal placement of speed bumps. I've tried to get that information, and I ended up looking up some NACTO standards. I can't find any Georgia standards, but NACTO standards say every couple hundred feet.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Parker.
Thanks. My priorities include the alternative crisis response team from Advantage Behavioral Health, the living wages, including temporary and seasonal employees. And then in youth development, I'm going to throw up something kind of crazy, because I know I've talked a lot about the municipal garden community garden pilot as a youth development opportunity that has manifold additional community benefits that also bolster public safety. I actually read a study that was done in a similar blight remediation program in Philadelphia, and they found that they had a 39% decrease in gun violence in areas surrounding the properties they remediated, in addition to, employing youth at a living wage, et cetera. There's a lot of good that could come of that. But I also am hearing a lot from the community that they want to feel empowered to make some changes in leisure services, or, community organizations that currently exist be well funded to support the youth, to help crack down on, the gun violence epidemic we're experiencing. So I'm going to say that in general, I have already made this $150,000 request for the community garden, but I would actually like to round up to a total of $500,000 to be participatorily budgeted among changes to leisure services, participatory budgeting applied to the new programming and renovations allotted for the Aaron Hurd and Lay Park, as well as perhaps considering a competitive process to fund community organizations that work with youth. So living wages, alternative crisis response teams, youth development, in short.
Cool, thanks. Mr. Davenport.
Short and sweet. Living wages, Athens Area Homeless Shelter, PIO, Central Services.
And Mayor Pro Tem, can I say one extra thing?
Yeah, just one sec.
I forgot.
Well, hold on. No, I'll come right back to you. But Commissioner Davenport, say those three again, please.
I'm sorry. Living wage, Athens Area Homeless Shelter, PIO for $78,000, Central Service for $100,000 to $154,000. Corridor group.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Parker.
Okay, so two things. I forgot that I tasked myself with reading off the budget recommendations given us by the Justice Memory Team. So I'm going to do that. The first is ACC Freedom Wages. So bringing all of our workers up to above $20 an hour, full and part-time staff. The second is the ACC Black History Center, which actually does not currently have a funding amount attached to it. They're hoping that they can get started with some of the renovations required for that through endowments and SPLOST money. So that actually doesn't impact the general fund. The Walk of Recognition, which I said our last meeting was estimated at $50,000. And municipal mobile network, so municipal broadband in essence. Not sure how much that will cost yet. Funding from SPLOST. So really the only thing that directly impacts the FY22 budget is the freedom wages. And all of these items were voted on unanimously by the committee, which includes myself and Commissioner Hamby.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'd like to do something real quick. If we could kind of run through some of these top priorities that have been intimated by everyone, and then if folks could signify that they're on board by giving a thumbs up, then that could signify to the mayor, that we got some consensus building around some common goals.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have the list that was sent to us by staff of all the priorities that were identified in our previous meeting? I wanted to point out that we have that, so you could just run through that.
I have them right here. I just wrote them down.
Oh, okay, that works. Yeah, cool.
So let's go ahead. So the Public Defender's Office requests. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. The mayor is watching. Commissioner Hamby, we see you. Okay. Got a good consensus there. And, if you don't see a thumbs up for some of your colleagues, we have the weekend, have conversation, try to build support. So Tuesday, maybe we can get some more thumbs up. How about the...
Russell, I'm sorry I had to interrupt, but I also think some of the questions that we've asked of the manager would be helpful, and of what potential ARP sources would be helpful as well.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. This is not at any, just kind of give us an idea of where we might be traveling. That's a good point, Commissioner. Okay. How about the alternative crisis response? Who's ready to hop on board with that? Okay. Looking good. The independent agency request for the homeless shelter. Okay. The
Mayor Pro Tem,
yes.
May I jump in? I know we said the independent agency for the homeless shelter.
Yes.
Did we discuss? I thought it was on somebody's list before. The independent agency for the Athens Land Trust?
That did not come up at this meeting.
I'm going to add it.
Okay. I'll notate that, and we'll do that. Okay.
To clarify, or I guess for a question, there is the $120,000 in the mayor's recommended going towards the oversight for the inclusionary housing program.
Yeah.
So I assume that money would be going. That might be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't know that. That's my point. So.
Okay.
And Pam, I understand that coming out of the inclusionary zoning group, that there was the interest in a code analysis piece too. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's at least I would say that the inclusionary housing committee, I think, assumed that $120,000 would be going to that. And I know there's a letter coming asking for that. But we are asking for an additional $30,000 to $35,000 to be added on to that, so that we could also do a code analysis of our planning and building code to make sure that we're removing any policy hindrances to building affordable housing. And there will be information coming to y'all actually in the coming days specifically about that request.
Cool. Did we do living wage? Sorry, I was kind of caught in the middle. Living wage for all employees, part-time, seasonal. Okay. All right. Fund for youth development, a bucket for youth development for, okay.
If you could slow down just a little bit, I'm having to scroll back and forth to see everyone's video. Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure I can see where everybody's at.
Yeah, you got it. The Historic Preservation Countywide Audit.
Is that the, yeah.
Historic Athens Independent
Audit.
Yep. All right. The corridor allocation for 2 employees for corridor beautification. Okay.
All right, Mike, you're stepping it up a bit here.
Yeah, why are you getting so fancy, bro?
And now he's got the celebration.
Now you're just
blowing the horn. Love it.
The 6K for the quiet zone start. Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What was that?
6,000 for the train quiet zone. Got it. Okay. 19K for street light capital. Get street lights where we need them.
And might that also be sidewalk lighting? Do you think, Russell, depending on once that gets going?
Yeah.
And that, TPW would tell you that's a different thing. So you may want to specify that you want some pedestrian scale lighting if that's what's being sought.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is depending on the area, a particular area, Commissioner Edwards' area, the street lights are there, but what needs to be is something closer to the ground sidewalk in between, because the street lights are for vehicles, and we're trying to talk about pedestrian safety, which is sidewalk lighting, like on Baxter. So that bucket should have both, depending on what's needed.
That's fine. Yeah, that sounds good. 20K for the neighborhood traffic management capital seed money.
Did y'all see my note when I pulled up the SPLOST 2011 project that says we have $364,000 still in that bucket? I don't know if that's true, but that's what the update from March 2021 says.
Manager Williams, do you need more than $364,000 at this time for speed bumps?
No, and Commissioner Denson, what SPLOST project was that?
It's in 2021. I was hoping Tim Denson wouldn't see that because I need it for Kingswood.
Well, that's Project 31 from SPLOST 2011, and I think what it shows though is that that the money that we've spent so far, $136,000, that has helped at least a few of these roads already. So I think $20,000 ain't gonna go far, y'all. I think Commissioner Link or somebody said that, but $364,000 will go a ways.
And we also have a new T-Splosh coming up, so maybe that could be.
Yeah. Manager Williams, do you have a ballpark idea of how much a speed bump costs on a typical neighborhood street? I'm remembering something like 10 grand. Am I?
Well, yeah. And the manager, he already has it on his to-do list to get with us on Tuesday with sort of a recommendation and some budget ideas.
But Commissioner Link, there's other, there's striping, there's narrowing of lanes, there's rapid rectangular flashing beacons. There's all these different tools in the toolkit.
Right. Yeah.
But we can get you an average cost on that.
All right, let's table this one till Tuesday. We'll get some clarity.
Yeah, because I have a lot of questions too, because these are my echoes from my in my area that seems to get kind of open. So yeah, if we could table that to Tuesday, that would be helpful for me.
And Mayor Pro Tem, if I could just add, I think this is also just indicative of the different pots of money I had asked, I guess, a couple meetings ago, of not necessarily going through the whole budget like Commissioner Link had asked to know what would be ARP money. But when a topic comes up like that, it's great that Commissioner Denson, saw that in the 2010 SPLOST, right, to bring up. But those buckets that are already somewhere else can help us with the new ideas that don't have buckets already to them. So I appreciate all that kind of research and input.
Cool. Okay, just a few more. The DA's request, District Attorney Gonzalez.
I'm supportive, but I would like to condition them upon a review to figure out what those review components might look like when we hopefully get through the backlog. Okay. For future years, yeah.
And I think I also want to piggyback on Commissioner Parker. I think also you could look at some of the expenses. I mean, certainly the 2 additional employees are the ones I was highlighting the most that might be worth exploring.
Okay. All right. And we got the Public Information Office request. Okay. And we got the, let's see, sustainability salary supplement, 15,000. Okay. We got the, I guess, $500,000 community garden youth development program.
So just youth development broadly. I think we already talked about, we already did a thumbs up for youth development.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that sounds like something for ARP too, though.
Sure. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. I'm just trying to seed that in the conversation and see how we can make it happen. So yeah. Good point.
I'll raise my hand, but I guess I don't.
Yeah.
There's language specific in the Treasury guidance to that categorical area.
Cool. Okay, good. And then the walk of recognition for the Lennon Town. Okay. Okay.
Hey, don't forget the CEP money now for the events downtown.
Boo.
Oh, come on.
Okay, everybody give me a good thumbs down now. All right, CEP funding for events downtown, 35,000. Who likes
put your hand up. What are you doing?
I don't do downtown. I just supported the bar. I just supported the bar owners down there. I done did my share.
All right.
Community wide? Why does it have to be downtown?
Yeah, everything is downtown.
Okay. All right.
Can we also check in about the disparity study?
Disparity study. Last one, disparity study.
No, it's not the
And we haven't seen a price tag for that, right?
Right.
No.
But we talked about it last year as well, FY22.
All right. So
you didn't Mayor Pro Tem, you didn't do the dump cameras.
The dump.
That's right. Well, no one brought it up this time.
Allison did.
Security. Yep.
Oh, you brought it up. My bad.
Dump cameras. Show love for the dump cameras. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Myers, I see you. Yes.
Mariah was thinking about it. She's like, nobody's going to say nothing. I'm not either.
Okay.
I'll have my fingers crossed.
Commissioner Myers.
Yes. Can we actually say, is anyone interested in even knowing if we're giving any increase to our retirees at all?
We're going to get clarification on the pensioners for Tuesday for sure. Right, Manager Williams?
Okay.
Okay. Great.
And that's an old word. Let's use a positive word, okay?
For the participants of the pension program.
That's right. That's right.
Can we also maybe get some consensus on Commissioner Hamby's idea about delaying the budget vote to have our American Rescue Plan work session? I think that's a really good idea, actually.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, thumbs up on delaying the budget vote 2 weeks. To maybe right before our break.
Allison just wants to get it over with.
Okay.
I understand, yo.
Can I see it again? Can I see it again? Let me see it again. Delay for 2 weeks to get more ARP guidance.
So I think with the complexity ARP introduces,
let's think about that. Hopefully get more clarity from Judd and Blaine possibly for Tuesday.
Well, Well, and to be realistic, I think that with this avalanche of questions that are very time-consuming to answer, you see how long it takes.
Yeah.
Do we really need to go over this again Tuesday if we're going to add more time?
Well,
it's just something to think about.
Yeah, we'll think about it. Okay, two more.
I agree with that.
Hool and Denson, Commissioner Hool, and then Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, we had talked in the last meeting about stuff we might want to remove, and I get the impression that there was.
We're going to do that next. Commissioner Denson.
Cool. I was asking the same thing.
Okay, great. So now the first meeting, we were pretty much around, pushing off the police cadet. So thumbs up for pushing off the police cadet. We still sort of okay.
Oh, I'm taking.
Okay, so starting off with some consensus there.
Was that one fund? Was that 120,000?
180.
How much?
180. Okay, let's go around real quick because we're up on 2 hours, folks. So let's go around quick and highlight things you'd like to see pushed off, and then we'll do a quick straw poll to give the mayor some idea. Okay, let's start.
That was Mariah's, so we can start with hers. That was it. Now we'll go to number 3. Just kidding.
What did I do?
Mr. Davenport.
I didn't do it.
No. On task. Commissioner Davenport.
Oh, no.
Lead vacuums.
No, you didn't. Okay, Commissioner Parker.
In Nevada County Police take-home car program and sell the Bearcat.
Okay, modify the take-home, sell the Bearcat. Commissioner Lane.
I would like possibly to reallocate funding from community dinners and Envision Athens to our youth development pot. And also, I feel like the homeless coordinator position needs more input from our homeless providers and possible funding from ARP rather than our capital budget.
Okay.
Our general funds, excuse me.
The homeless position would be funded out of CDBG CV funds and would not be general fund capital.
So that's already has a different funding source.
Okay. All right.
Could those funds be used for something else that's already on our wish list that would not qualify for ARP funds? I'm just trying to stretch this.
CDBG allocation?
The CDBG CV funds were for COVID purposes as our ARP.
Okay,
All
so
right.
the same qualifications. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wright.
I don't have specifics on getting rid of things until I learn what the American Rescue Plan or potential other funding like SPLOST that Commissioner Denson had brought up as well. So I guess that puts me back to the thumbs up for delay.
Okay, that's cool. And, I love hearing that. I think it's a great idea. How can we identify other funds, that can cover these budget items? The work we can do as individuals to get some of those answers by Tuesday would be phenomenal, kind of help out our staff. So, Commissioner Denson.
The only other thing I would add is considering reducing our fleet replacement for public safety vehicles, which I guess could potentially be tied into what Commissioner Parker brought up, but not necessarily.
Okay. All righty. Commissioner Hool?
I got nothing line item wise right now to add for removing, except that I'll say that I don't think we should be afraid to dip a little bit into the surplus to make up the difference if we need to, if there's stuff that we know we want to fund.
Fund balance, okay.
Yeah, for the fund balance, yeah.
I got nothing that hasn't been said already. Commissioner Myers?
I don't really have anything, but I do
right.
want to figure out what we're doing with that 2011 youth partnership money, which might be in this report here, but I'd like to explore that.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Thornton?
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Link about the community dialogue dinners. I don't remember what the dollar amount was, but that
$50,000.
How much?
25,000, 24,000.
Okay. I definitely would pushback on that. I still question Envision Athens and the program, this nonprofit training that we're going to do with the $500,000. I would like to see that moved into some homeless encampment work, and we'll train folk later and take care of homeless folk now. And my last one, Russell's going to kill me, but the leaf blowers.
Commissioner Hamby.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You know, the civic dinners, I think just kind of delay those and see where it goes. The police cadet, I'm not quite sure what that entails, so I don't know if it's a top priority for right now. And Commissioner Myers was asking about the youth development money from last SPLOST, and that is similar to a center that the East Side is getting, but this was meant for the West Broad area. And I know the Land Trust was awarded that during a bidding process, and I know they're actively searching for a piece of property and a facility to handle that. So,
is that not just capital cost though, not operational?
That is capital cost, right?
Okay.
And Land Trust, I think, would be responsible for a lot of the capital or the operating.
Well, the operational, okay.
Right. I think, you know, and I think you've done a good job, Mayor Pro Tem. But this is actually a difficult budget, and it's difficult by the fact that we have the ARP money hanging out there for discussion, and I think once we get past that, we'll realize what may or may not be possible within the general fund budget here. So. Yeah, this is not this. I mean, there's a lot of good suggestions, a lot of good ideas with limited resources, and having the ARP out there makes it a bit more difficult.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamby. Okay, so let's do our quick straw poll, and then we'll wrap up.
That was it.
I'm sorry, what? Commissioner Thornton, I saw your hand. What's up?
I just had a question, and I think it was the last SPLOST. And Manager Williams could help me. Didn't we set aside money in the last SPLOST for a mobile health unit?
Yes, about $500,000.
Maybe I know that's SPLOST money, but I don't know how we equip it. But as we're going through this COVID recovery, I would like for us to think about how we could get that thing on the ground and moving.
Great. So we'll get some clarity from Manager Williams on the status of the medical unit, mobile health unit. Okay, so we've got, last thing, Commissioner Houle, then we're going to have the straw vote and then we're going to adjourn.
I just want to ask a question about the hiring freeze that I understand was enacted with the budget last year. Is that something that we also revisit in conjunction with this budget? And if so, is that wrapped into the budget vote, or is that a separate vote?
I've recommended to end the hiring freeze and go to immediate hiring.
Okay.
I concur with that because of the need for people to be employed right now in job hunting. I think that's a good idea for us to let hiring happen.
All right, so let's go down this list and give our colleagues each an idea of where more conversation needs to happen before Tuesday. Okay, so reduce the fleet replacement capital costs, capital contribution.
Are we supposed to thumbs up?
Yes.
I'd kind of like to know about, some amount or something. That would help me determine that.
Yeah, let's hone that for Tuesday, hopefully, Commissioner Denson. Thanks. Move off from Envision Athens.
Wait a minute, what is up with that?
Hold up.
Okay. Thumbs down thing.
Okay. Oh. Raise your hand if you're in favor of moving off and moving away from Envision Athens. Okay, just raise your hand like this, because the thumbs up and down is confusing. Raise your hand if you want to move away
I'm
from
not
Division
convinced. I don't know, man. So
My hand is up, Russell, but I'd like to make a comment about that. Since I'll be real quick too. You know, I was on the committee that started Envision Athens, and it's been good. But really, and Commissioner Link remembers this, and Commissioner Wright. You know, it was started as just a 2-year pilot program, and it wasn't supposed to be in perpetuity for that, or it was supposed to have been taken over by some other organization, perhaps like the chamber. So it really wasn't set up to be a government-run organization. So anyway, we can discuss that later, but it's on there.
Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you'd like to discontinue the homeless coordinator position. Just raise your hand like this.
You said discontinue?
That's correct. Raise your hand if you'd like to discontinue the homeless coordinator position. This is something put forward by Commissioner Lane.
I just wanted to make sure that the funding source was not our general fund, since we had alternative funds. But I also want to make sure that that position is created with, I mean, I've seen the job description. From what I understand, our homeless agencies have had no input on that. So I want to make sure that that job.
Okay, I got confused. I didn't know that was a question. All right, sorry about that. So scratch that. Okay, who wants to discontinue community dinners? Raise your hand. Okay.
Me, Mike.
Okay. Who wants to sell the Bearcat? Okay. I'll phrase it this way. Who's interested in modifying the police car take-home program to save money? Okay, we already did the Civic Cadet program. Who wants to keep running gas leaf blowers? Who wants to keep the gas leaf blowers?
All right, now, Russell.
You're trying to trick us. Oh my God, Russell.
All right, motion to adjourn. All right.
So it's the
I have a quick question about
vacuums.
I have a quick question about those. I'd like to know the cost savings of running electric leaf blowers, which have a much lower maintenance cost, not to mention the health benefits.
Yeah, they don't kill you. They don't give you lung cancer. Yeah, we'll check on that by Tuesday.
LRC will cover that when it's time.
All right. Great. So, Mr. Mayor, any final thoughts for the commission before we adjourn, sir?
No, I'll probably send follow up on a couple of things just to sort of highlight the rationale for presence. And I've noted a couple of things in the chat. I will say I think there's some utility to having a conversation at least about certainty of allowable expenditures through ARP, so that we know what could be integrated into that package, because many of the things that have been raised as prospects are allowable. The feds have been fairly expansive, so that's helpful.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues for the collegiality as always. Keep the good vibes flowing through the weekend. Have conversations with those folks that you'd like to get support from for these initiatives so we could advance and progress towards budget adoption at our next meeting on Tuesday. Thank you, Manager Williams, for fielding all the questions and your due diligence. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Bye-bye.